Hello and welcome back to Buffalo Sports Insider. This is the most electrifying sports show in the 716. I'm your host, Sebastian Sierra. With me today, we have Michael Lastique, Thomas Bailey, and Evan Harrington. Today, we have a lot of updates for you with the Sabres, Bandits, and the NFL Combine. Make sure to check out our social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and BuffaloSportsInsider.com for daily news. And stay tuned for our premiere on Finger Lakes TV coming soon. Breaking news today, as 13-year pro Jason Kelce announces retirement after 13 years. What are your guys' thoughts on the All-Pro center's career?
Man, he was one of the all-time greats. Honestly, amazing guy. What he does for his community. I just heard the other day that this guy, I think he did a marathon for raising money for cancer or autism or something like that. It was for a good cause. So, I'm just glad that he ended off his career in a great way.
Yeah, Jason Kelce, like you mentioned, one of the best to ever do it at his position. He really came into the media a lot recently over the last year or two, obviously with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, him being the brother of Travis, is going to kind of propel him into the light a little bit. But Jason Kelce, like we mentioned, one of the best to ever do it at his position. Very humble guy. He's a phenomenal human being. Just great representation of Philadelphia on and off the field. And got to give him his props and his flowers for the career that he had, not only on the field, but off the field. He's a really great representation of the city of Philadelphia.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much that I can say that you guys have not already said. I mean, he's an amazing guy, an amazing cultural presence in the city of Philadelphia. He represents a lot of what that city is. And more than anything, man, one of the best to ever do it, period, on the offensive line, let alone just his position being center. I feel like he is one of the best players as in great on and off the field, as you said, that you can really get.
All right, so that was good. So last week we left over with the Sabres' victory against Carolina in the shootout 3-2. Buffalo went 2-2 over the week. So first game we're going to talk about is the Panthers versus Sabres as Buffalo falls 3-2 on the road in Florida. Both goaltenders played very well as UPL recorded 34 saves on 37 shots and Bobrovsky recorded 28 saves on 30 shots. Defenseman Brandon Montour recorded 3 points for Florida in the victory. What are your thoughts on the game, Thomas?
I mean, man, this is another one of those games where you expect Buffalo to do a little bit more that they didn't do. And, I mean, realistically, after the week we had last week, we were hoping for a little bit of an upbeat change, as we all know that this team can be better than what they are playing at right now. And more than anything, the loss in this game kind of propelled a nice little winning streak here at the end. But it is a tough one to lose, as it's the second game we've lost to Florida in the last couple of weeks here. We'll have to see how it continues. But, yeah, not the best start to the week.
As you said, it's kind of deflating. They lost their last two games. So I'm just hoping, they bounce back and, become even stronger after this loss.
Yeah, and talking about it, every win matters going from here on forward. And the Sabres could go 5-1 in a 6-game stretch, but that one loss is still going to eat at you just because of where the Sabres have found and put themselves into this point in time into the season. And they've been playing a lot of close games recently. The Sabres haven't really been getting blown out. In a game against Florida that's, in your conference, in your division, you want those wins, you want those points. You're trying to creep your way back up in the Atlantic Division in the Eastern Conference to the wild card spot. Every win matters, whether it's, ones a few games ago or going forward. Every point matters.
So next game we're going to go into is the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Buffalo Sabres as Buffalo takes a close one in 3-2 overtime win against their divisional rivals. Sabres' Rasmus Dahlin scored the overtime winner to cap off a 2-point night and gives the Buffalo the extra point as Luukkonen saves 21 of his 23 shots against as Buffalo got a crucial win. What are your thoughts on the game, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, this game was the Sabres rallying back, right? Tage Thompson scored that goal in the power play late in the third, got the game tied up, and then obviously we saw it go to overtime, and the Sabres got a penalty. They got the power play, and on the power play, the man advantage, Casey Middlestat doing a good job at surveying and kind of patiently waiting for something to set up. Dahlin at the quarterback position, slid his way through the slot, found his way to the front of the net, and the nice little pass from Middlestat to Dahlin put it right past Vasilevsky for the win.
A very good game indeed, as Buffalo really needed this one. I mean, Tampa's currently sitting in that final wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference with 72 points. And this is a big win for Buffalo, whether that be in overtime or not. You still get that extra point over Tampa Bay, and that is very crucial. As Evan did previously say, every win matters. Every game matters at this point. especially when you're playing a team in the same conference, let alone in a playoff spot where you want to be at the end of the season. 20 games left in the year, and what a win to have in that game, 3-2 in overtime. Dali with a major play. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, this was definitely their statement game. They came back off that loss, and they definitely, decided to buck up and get that win, get that tough, very, very tough win. And I'm just glad to see it.
So let's talk about how Buffalo dominates en route to a 7-2 win at home over the Las Vegas Golden Knights. 6 different players scored for the Sabres in this one as the team's record in the second win in a row. What are your thoughts on the game, Thomas?
Man, all I can say is one word, and that is wow. I had a little bit of hope coming into this game that we could potentially beat the Vegas Golden Knights. I feel like this indeed, in my opinion, Michael, is our statement win of the week. Beat a team as good as Vegas, a team that's coming off a Stanley Cup championship, and to beat them by a considerable margin, 7-2. The type of production on offense that you hope for every single night, getting 6 people to score. It's just something that the Sabres can't do too often, and something that when they do is absolutely electric. When everybody's firing on all cylinders, this team is one of the best in the league, and I will die on that hill. But I will say one thing, and that is, wow, what a win from the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, no Eichel or Aiden Hill for the Vegas Golden Knights, but either way, the Sabres dominated on the penalty kill and on 5-on-5. There wasn't many penalties called for either team, but when the Sabres, had to play great 5-on-5, they did. They put up 5-on-5 goals, and then obviously Dylan Cousins with the 2 shorthanded goals. 7-2. It always seems this year, once a year, Buffalo has one statement victory against Vegas. It always seems like the last couple of years they have one big win against Vegas, and this is the one in 2024. Again, no Eichel, no Hill. Either way, it's still a very good team coming into your building. And the Sabres, they showed out winning 7-2.
I mean, you guys explained it really well. I mean, honestly, I just feel like they can, hopefully, they can come back, in their next game and just be even stronger. I mean, Jesus, man, 5-2. That was a pretty great game.
So last game we're going to talk about with the Sabres is the Sabres versus the Jets as Buffalo loses 5-2 after a terrible third period against the Winnipeg Jets. The Sabres were outscored 4-0 in the third period after leading 2-1 heading into the final frame. Luukkonen stopped 30 of the Jets' 33 shots, but this was enough to give Winnipeg the win, as they netted 2 empty net goals to ice it. Overall, this game was pretty good for the first 2 periods before the Sabres dismantled, costing them a chance after a 3-game winning streak. What were your thoughts on the game, Thomas?
Man, this was a game that I felt like we dominated at the beginning. We were doing everything right, and I'm going to flat out call out that opening period. We were forechecking like crazy. We had a great game. Our forwards were being physical. They were being smart. They weren't trying to take away chances. We were playing relatively good hockey. And when we get to that second period, we get that second goal of the game. We start to get a little more upbeat as we head to the third period. And that's when it all just came off. The tires fall off, and we give up 4, 2 of which were empty net goals. But still, in the end, to give up 4 in one period is absolutely brutal. It cost us that chance at winning our 3rd straight game for the 2nd time in a row. And I feel like it's just deflating loss for the Sabres. We did basically everything right and still found a way to lose.
Yeah, in the third period of those types of games, when you're going up against a team like Winnipeg, who's going for the President's Trophy this year, you can't have a bad third period. You need to play a full 60, right? You mentioned the first period, the Sabres looked really good. Well, it doesn't matter how good your first period is when there's still another 2 periods to be played. When you're going up a team against Winnipeg, you need to have your best period and your final period. And that's just something the Sabres didn't do. They had the lead, but they lost it. I thought Luukkonen played well enough, but I think the Sabres offensively just did not stay with it. And then obviously you can't hold a team like Winnipeg down all game. They're going to find their way out. They're going to crawl their way out. And that's what they did. They crawled out of this one. And with that third period, they took advantage of the Sabres and they came out of this one with a 5-2 win.
I mean, they've got to lock it in and complete the whole game. I mean, as you said, they came out very strong, but they just ended up falling a little bit short to a great team. So, I mean, just being consistent is really the biggest thing when coming into the next games.
The Sabres now head to Toronto for a matchup Wednesday night in the first of a 2-game road trip and starting their first of 3 games in a 4-night span. So now let's go into the Buffalo Bandits as the Bandits fall 13-12 in Vancouver as Josh Byrne recorded 8 points, 5 goals, 3 assists in the loss. After being tied at 3, the Bandits would proceed to allow the next 5 falling behind 8-3 before just falling short of the comeback win. With the loss, the Bandits now fall to 5-6 and currently on a 3-game losing streak. What are your thoughts on the game, Evan?
Yeah, so obviously right now the Bandits are on the 3-game losing streak, like you mentioned, and they just got to figure something out here. Like, obviously Matt Vince still hurt. Dane Smith isn't performing up to standards. This team right now is just going through a lull. And, this is a team coming off a championship. There's a lot of emotions coming back into the season. They're still a really good team. They're still in a playoff spot currently. There's 8 teams in the NLL. But, Thomas, you mentioned to me off air that if they don't get back to 500, they can kind of find their way out of the playoffs. And to be at a championship level or championship win last year and a championship level for the amount of time that they did, it'd be a little bit of a shame if they did not make the playoffs here. And obviously, their next game is at home against the Saskatchewan Rush. They have a chance to go up against them and, pick up a win and get back to 500. And it'll be a big win if they do, and they would, resecure that security in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree 110%. I feel like this next game, in my honest opinion, is the biggest must-win game of the season for the Bandits. I feel like against a team like Saskatchewan, they're not the greatest, they're not the worst, but I feel like in general, this is a team that has to find a way to get a W here soon. And with how it is, going on a 4-game losing streak, falling to 5-7, it's not exactly where you want to be in the season, especially when you look at the playoffs and you see that the more games you lose, they're going to fall out of that playoff picture. And in a game like this, giving up 5 unanswered goals and just kind of falling behind. You mentioned Matt Vince being injured. I feel like it's not really too much on Vince being injured, though. I feel like not the backup who is the issue here. I feel like that offense has to find a way to get a couple more points. And like you said, Dane Smith not playing up to par. I mean, Josh Byrne played a pretty good game. He had 8 points, 5 goals, 3 assists. So I feel like
31 goals on the year, but
yeah, we just
Smith only has 12 or 14 goals on the year.
Yeah, we need
the counterparts aren't keeping up with one
And
another.
when that happens, you're not going to find yourself at the top of the league. You're going to find yourself near the bottom. And I feel like they need to find that consistency before this season is a wash.
Yeah, the Bandits' main goal is to just get 500. Just get 500, and from there, just keep on trying to fight.
Start to pick up confidence, man.
Yeah, man, just pick up that confidence and just keep going. Honestly, you guys are on a 3-game losing streak right now. Just try to keep fighting, and you guys should be able to be good.
The Bandits will now look to get back to an even 500 with a win against the Saskatchewan Rush at home. If the team fails to beat the Rush, they are in jeopardy of missing the playoffs 1 season removed from winning the NLL Cup. I want to wrap up today's show with the NFL Combine. Brian Thomas Jr. ran a 4.34, an impressive for a player who's 6'4" and 205 pounds. Another wide receiver who ran a 4.34 second 40-yard dash was John Brown, who played for the Bills in the past. Thomas also met with the Bills during the draft process, showing their interest in potentially drafting the LSU prospect. On top of that, wide receiver Xavier Worthy from Texas ran a 4.21, the fastest in combine history. We all know that John Ross went 9th overall mainly due to his speed. Is Worthy's draft stock significantly higher after beating the 40-yard dash record?
I'm going to say no. I feel like speed is just – it's valued a lot in the league. Like, look at players like Tyreek Hill, one of the fastest in the world. And, I mean, like, when you have a player like that, you can have exceptional value there just from his speed alone. But you have to make sure that he can do other things as well. It's not just speed. You have to make sure he can catch the ball. And I feel like he does that at a decent level, but not a all-pro level like the other receivers in this draft. I don't think he's going to be the guy who goes up and gets any kind of pass like that. I feel like, yes, he could be a great speedy player, but at the same time, speed's not everything. I feel like in an offense like Buffalo's, he could succeed due to our screen game that we like to run a lot with the quarterbacks. But I feel like, not quarterbacks, but wide receivers. But I feel like at the same time, this team just kind of needs something else. I feel like Brian Thomas would be a little bit better of a receiver. And I feel like overall, there's a ton of other great receiving prospects like Malik Neighbors, Romo Dunze, to name a couple. Of course, Marvin Harrison up there at the top as well. But when you have all these types of receivers in such a deep draft, I don't feel like he's going anywhere near 9. And I feel like he could fall out of the first round because of that scaredness from a player like John Ross. Yeah,
the one thing I think Worthy did for himself was project himself higher in the draft rankings.
I agree.
A guy that's 5'11", 165 doesn't have the best I guess, frame or build that a lot of scouts are looking for at the wide receiver position. We saw Devontae Smith kind of be an outlier a couple years ago, but he was a Heisman level receiver. Xavier Worthy, I don't want to throw him into that class, right? His speed is dangerous, and that kind of throws him into the first round conversation. I don't think it's a top 10 pick conversation because we've seen a lot of teams get kind of, I don't want to say scared, but a little hesitant of going after these guys that are basically known on speed.
Look at John
Yeah, I
Ross,
mean,
receiver out of Cincinnati,
Yeah.
drafted 9th overall by Cincinnati, or even Tyquan Thornton more recently from the Patriots in the 2nd round. He was projected day 3, maybe even undrafted pick. He runs a mad fast 40-yard dash, and now he's a 2nd round pick.
I mean, I don't feel as if that his 40 time is going to significantly, it significantly made his name known,
Yeah.
but it's not gonna steer these scouts into actually picking him for that.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I will say is that there are different prototypes of receivers that are coming into the NFL now. When you speak on players like, you said Devontae Smith,
Yeah.
Speaking on John Ross, I'll even go closer to last year's draft and speaking about Tank Dell. I mean, the guy is undersized. He was undersized and was kind of a speedster as well, good route runner. I feel like he can kind of bring the same thing to the table. I just don't want to say that speed doesn't matter or whatever, but it does. But he can actually move as well. So that's my piece on that one.
Which quarterback stood out the most to you guys in the NFL Combine this year?
All right. We're gonna speak on the guy Caleb Williams. He knows where he ranks. He didn't per se do anything in the combine because he didn't want to or whatever. But the best performing prospect I feel like was I think Drake May. Drake May really threw the ball really well. I seen his drills. He was really efficient when it came down to throwing them corner routes and those deep balls and stuff like that. So I like Drake May.
I'll agree with that. I think Drake May is one of my favorite prospects in this year's draft. He's my favorite quarterback in the draft class, even over Caleb Williams. I feel like I'd pick him if I had number 1. That is a stretch to some people, but to me, I feel like he's just ready for the NFL game. He's very smart quarterback, very athletic. He can go and get you those yards on the ground. I feel like he's a very similar player to Justin Herbert. I feel like he can make all the throws. He's got a cannon for an arm. I feel like he can do anything you ask him to, and that's exactly what you want at the NFL level, to be able to say, hey, go throw this ball here and make sure it's at the right time, and then we'll have a good game. And I feel like Drake May offers that over any other quarterback in this draft, and I feel like this draft combine showed that more than anything.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you too as well. Drake May, obviously, we know Washington holds the 2nd overall pick, and one of their needs is quarterback. And with the performance that May had at the combine, this might be able to solidify himself as the 2nd guy in the draft behind Caleb Williams in many people's eyes. I know you said you have May over Williams, but in many people's eyes, Williams is the guy. True. Drake May be able to now solidify himself over a guy like Jaden Daniels as the number 2 quarterback in this draft with his performance at the combine.
So with that being said, who do you guys have as your top 3 prospects to get drafted first in the draft this year?
Unfortunately, in the world we live in, it's not about value. It's not about position, really. It's just about quarterback. And I feel like that's exactly how it's going to go in the top 3. I'm expecting a combination of Williams, May, and Daniels here. I feel like the team at 3 could be different. I think New England might be able to trade out of that spot if they really aren't liking Jaden Daniels per se. I've heard they are indeed high on Jaden Daniels, and if they don't find a quarterback in free agency, that'll likely be the option. But I feel like it's going to go Caleb Williams at number 1. Number 2 is going to be Drake May, and number 3 is going to be Jaden Daniels. But if you're talking about overall players, I feel like I'd have to give a shout out to Marvin Harrison Jr. and the other receivers in this draft. I feel like one of them is at the top, and I can't stress enough about this tackle class being very good.
Yeah, I agree. This is a quarterback-heavy, dominated draft class, and they are all talented. Even speaking on Michael Penix, Bo Nix, he's okay, but this is is my mic muted? Yeah, this is very. I see Caleb Williams going first. Then you got Drake May, then Jaden Daniels. That's my top three.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you guys on that there. Obviously, when you talk about the top three prospects getting drafted, it's gonna be different than they got the three best guys in the draft.
Right.
Because some
Positional
people, yeah,
value,
some
yeah,
people
of
would say
course.
that the three best guys in the class are Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Brock Bowers. You can say those are the three best guys in the draft, but maybe only two of those three are going top three. I got Caleb Williams going one, Drake May going two, and I think New England's gonna, kind of shock the world here and draft Marvin Harrison at three. I think they're gonna try to get the next big thing at the wide receiver position, and that's gonna be Marvin Harrison Jr.
I feel like they've traded back more than anything. There's a lot of teams that are interested in trading up, and if they indeed get the right package, I feel like that kickstarts their rebuild. And then I feel like there's not too big of a gap between receivers in this class. If you can drop down a few picks, cement yourself with more picks later on for next year and even this year as well, and also on top of that, get one of the big three being Odunze, Neighbors, or Harrison Jr., I feel like that's still a success for New England.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to say is with the receivers, like you got your Jamar Chase, your Justin Jeffersons, every team's trying to find that next big guy, the next big receiver.
Yeah.
And teams don't want to miss out on a guy like Marvin Harrison. You say there's only so much of a gap, but when we talk about Chase and Jefferson, if we think Harrison can be that type of level of receiver, there's a big gap between those two guys and the other young receivers in this league. They're going to dominate for years to come.
So going off of that, where do you guys think is the best fit for Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Arizona. I would love it if he goes to the Arizona Cardinals. I feel like they're going to get rid of Marquise Hollywood Brown in free agency, let him walk. I feel like it's just a very good kind of conversation to have because I feel like New England would be a great fit for him too. They need that receiver, but I feel like they have to find the quarterback before they find the receiver per se because it's hard to tell how good a receiver is unless they work with any quarterback. And so it's very uncommon to find a receiver of that caliber. Not saying Harrison Jr. is not that guy. I feel like he very well should be and can be. But I feel like the Arizona Cardinals fit really well because they already have the quarterback that is going to be there long-term in Kyler Murray. It'll be a great chemistry thing. I feel like they need a receiver really badly to go alongside a guy like Rondale Moore. And I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. would be the perfect fit.
I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. could really fit into the Chargers. I mean, like if we're really
he
speaking,
falls, man. Oh,
I mean,
I could definitely see that right
speaking
there.
on it,
That
I
would be
mean,
lovely.
like get him with Justin Herbert. Get Justin Herbert some young, talented guys who can really go up and get the ball.
Agreed.
I mean, this guy has shown at Ohio State that he can be one of the best. And you know what? How about you put him in a situation where he can be? That's just me.
Yeah, so the reason I said New England at first is because what better way to start your rebuild than getting a guy that can be great off the get, right? That's going to allow everyone else to kind of elevate their game. Whatever quarterback you have, if they're being able to throw to Marvin Harrison Jr., whether it's a rookie quarterback or a veteran, this is going to elevate their game, right? Like I guess the best case scenario for a team starting the rebuild would be to get their quarterback, their guy, their dream quarterback. Every team would love to start their rebuild with a Mahomes or an Allen or a Burrow, but that's not all realistic. You can't just go out and get one of those guys like with the snap of your fingers. But you can go get dominating wide receivers in the draft. There are a ton of receivers in the draft that you can go get and help your team kind of move the needle. And I think that's what the Patriots could do with Harrison.
Do you feel like the Patriots, with being so run heavy, do you feel like they're even gonna how do you feel like they're gonna fit him in? More like deep ball, RPO, like how do you feel like, or getting him out in open space, like how do you feel like?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a new Patriots team now.
Yeah.
Belichick's gone.
Yeah.
Mayo's in, and now I know
Yeah.
he played under Belichick as a linebacker.
Yeah.
But it's any way to get the guy the football. Any way you can get a guy like Marvin Harrison the football is the same way Jefferson and Chase.
Agreed.
Any way, just ball in space. Whether it's a quick
Playmakers.
RPO, downfield,
Yeah.
fade ball on the sideline, any way to get him the football is the way to get him.
I agree. You got a player though, like statistically speaking, you got a guy like Josh Allen. Josh Allen didn't really have that guy. We traded for Stephon Diggs. You got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow goes, and then they draft Jamar Chase the next year.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, we see the quarterback go first before we find that receiver.
Yeah.
And that's that's really where you want to be, is where you find that quarterback first. Of course, that's how it works most of the time. I feel like New England here in a specifically, I guess, in a draft where they have to kind of get that quarterback now. Next year's draft isn't that great for quarterbacks. I feel like this would be the year.
And thank you for watching another episode of Buffalo Sports Insider. You can find us on our social medias and check our website out at buffalosportsinsider.com for more news and stories. I'm your host, Sebastian Sierra, and thank you today for joining us, Evan Harrington, Thomas Bailey, and Michael Lastique.